Even with Baker off to the Browns, the best program in the Big 12 marches on, and even losing a Heisman Trophy winner still has expectations of a college football playoff berth and continued dominance in the Big 12. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, breaking down the Big 12. We have reached what has been the top for many years now. Oklahoma owns this conference, and it did again in 2017 at 12-2, 8-1, and within 1 point in regulation of getting to the college football national championship game. All right, yes, Baker Mayfield was awesome. He was the best player at his position in college football and won the awards and moved on as the number one overall draft pick at the next level. But Oklahoma football has lost great players in the past, and during this run of Bob Stoops and now Lincoln Riley, they will continue to recruit and fill the void. But Baker Mayfield may be a bit of a different commodity, especially considering Kyler Murray and his skill set being a bit different. It's actually tough to evaluate the offense and kind of project toward 2018. This is the number one offense in adjusted points per game in the 2010s decade. In the decade that started in 2010, this is the best offense in college football against its competition. So that obviously precedes Baker Mayfield. So the offense, the juggernaut, the game plan, the approach under Bob Stoops, led by Lincoln Riley as the offensive coordinator, has been in play and has been very functional and very explosive for quite some time. But it was taken to a new level with Mayfield at the control. So Kyler Murray is not going to show us the passing skills and probably not the leadership skills of Baker Mayfield for quite some time. But he's a different type of athlete. We're going to see more RPOs. He's lightning quick, and defenses are going to have to account for that. That may play up the role of Rodney Anderson, who for the second half of the season and a little bit more was arguably the best back in college football, an All-American for that stretch of games. Actually, if you prorate Rodney Anderson's productivity over the last 7 or 8 games of the season, his rushing and receiving for the entirety of this next fall season, he would total more than 2,400 yards from scrimmage. He was that good in the second half of the season, and Georgia found that out as he racked up over 200 yards on them in the Rose Bowl. He had 18 touchdowns. So Rodney Anderson comes back. Trey Sermon has become a bit of a change-up back. He averaged 6.2 yards per carry last season. It all is possible because of the offensive line, which has been the best in the conference for quite some time. They do lose 3 all-Big 12 players. They bring 3 really good players back, and actually 6 players across the offensive line with 103 career starts. You've got Ben Powers, Bobby Evans, and Drew Samia are the guys of note along the offensive front. All right, the explosive players on the outside include Hollywood Marquise Brown, 57 catches at 19-plus yards per reception and 7 touchdowns. CeeDee Lamb with 46 receptions and 7 touchdowns. And Michael Jones had 16 catches at over 19 yards per catch. What's going to happen to those numbers? The wide receiver position is more dependent than any other position on the field. They need a quarterback who can get them the ball, and the quarterback needs to stay upright to get them the ball, courtesy the offensive line. So with offensive line losses and with Kyler Murray in play instead of Baker Mayfield, we know that the run-pass ratio is going to go up toward Rodney Anderson and Trey Sermon and down toward the wide receivers. And then the efficiency and the explosive plays in that passing game when they do throw it is almost inevitably going to go down as well. It's impossible to maintain that type of proficiency in the offense without Baker Mayfield. But it's still going to be plenty of offense to go around as long as the defense is decent. And the defense in 2017 was horrendous about half the time and is unlike any other situation in college football in vying for a conference championship or getting to a college football playoff, where the offense can be so good that it can offset a marginal defense, a defense that ranked about 65th in the country in the advanced metrics. They gave up 41 points to Baylor, 38 to Iowa State. They lost that game, of course. They lost to Kansas, or they gave up 35 points to Kansas State, and the offense scored 62 against Oklahoma State, and it's a good thing because the Cowboys scored 52 points. Then down the stretch, the Oklahoma defense played better. They played really good in the championship game against TCU, limiting them to just, I believe, 20 points. And against Georgia in the first half of the Rose Bowl until they really caved in the second half. And the Georgia muscle along the offensive front and the power running game of Sony Michel and Nick Chubb really wore down the Sooners. All right, the big play guys that come back for Oklahoma, linebacker Kenneth Murray with 68 tackles and 7 tackles for loss. You've got Kenneth Mann along the defensive front. No Obo Okoronkwo. He was a disruptor. He was the one guy who played at another level, a guy that you would put on a Clemson or Alabama defense. He's in the NFL now. Cornerback Parnell Motley, a really good player with 63 tackles and 2 interceptions. All right. They have recruited better on that side of the football. Will that take hold here? Probably not the 2018 recruits necessarily, but Lincoln Riley's first class, the one that was kind of handed to him by Bob Stoops, was much better and ranked in the top 7 or 8 in the nation, and much of that had to do with defense. So maybe those guys who are redshirt freshmen or will be sophomores could make an impact on the defense because they will need it with the offense not being quite as potent as it's been under Baker Mayfield. Okay, the non-conference schedule provides no gimmies. For any decent team in college football, they would be a bit wowed by this non-conference schedule, but Oklahoma should be able to handle it, especially since all these games are at home. Army, good team, won a bowl game, won 10 games, beat San Diego State, beat Wake Forest. They've lost some pieces on offense, but and their quarterback, but Army still a difficult challenge at home. UCLA as well. That's the marquee game, or is the marquee game maybe Lane Kiffin and Devin Singletary, a 2,000-yard back, coming to Norman in Week 1 as FAU, the chic pick as the Group of 5 selection to make it to New Year's Day, comes to Norman in Week 1. I do expect Oklahoma to win all those games, although when they scheduled FAU, they didn't quite expect this kind of challenge. Mid-season, they've got a nice little stretch with Texas, TCU on the road, and Kansas State to deal with, and then the finale against West Virginia in Morgantown, when it could be a bit blustery there the last weekend of November in West Virginia. I've got the Sooners dropping off just slightly at 10-2, 7-2 in the conference. That should be enough to get them to the Big 12 championship game. But with the 2 losses, the college football playoff scenario is very precarious for this Oklahoma team. Need to hear from you now. So in the comments section, leave your record for Oklahoma in the Big 12 and overall, and we'll look at those and possibly chat it up as you leave your predictions and get set for our move to the who's up next, the ACC, the SEC, or the Big 10. Which should I do? Well, I'm going to wrap up the Big 12 and wrap it up and give you a championship selection between whoever made it. In the if you look at the standings, I've got to make a decision. But that's what it is for the Big 12. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Even if you disagree with me, you must admit we supply you with the best bloggers, broadcasters, and writers in the nation with our conversations throughout the week, and of course the live streams that are almost on a daily basis, as well as previews, predictions, game analysis on a regular basis as well. Right here on Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football.